Hello, coaches. Welcome back to another episode of Coach Better Spotlight. My name is Kim Cathino, and I have worked with hundreds of teachers, coaches, and leaders in schools around the world to help them create thriving and sustainable instructional coaching programs. And I'm on a mission to help you coach better. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, come learn with us in one of our courses for instructional coaches or private mentoring packages. Join our global Coach Better community and find all of our resources for instructional coaches on our website at coachbetter.tv. If you have a question you'd like to hear us answer or a topic you'd like us to discuss, please drop us a line on our website at coachbetter.tv/ask, join our Coach Better Facebook group, or find us on social media at Eduro Learning and send me a DM. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to catch all of our latest episodes here on YouTube. Today, I'm chatting with Carrie Hart and Paula Plaza Ponte, both experienced coaches and members of the Coach Alumni Group. We are chatting about the challenges that coaches go through as they level up in their career. We tend to focus a lot on the needs of new coaches or the process of building a coaching culture. This episode is about what the journey is like once you're an experienced coach. This spotlight focuses on the challenges that experienced coaches often face when they're trying to move beyond working one-to-one to truly build a coaching culture. The full-length episode includes the ways that educators often move into coaching, how and why coaches often lack support in their schools, and the importance of honoring self-care, processing time, and potentially a pivot away from schools as you navigate the messy middle of a coaching journey. This episode highlights the need for community and professional support for more experienced coaches. And although we don't talk about it in the episode, that's what we offer in the Coaches as Leaders course, as well as the Coach Alumni Group, which is exclusively for the coach graduates. If you've been a coach for several years and you're looking for ways to continue to grow and the specific support needed for experienced coaches, keep your eyes and ears open for our launch of the first global cohort of Coaches as Leaders. Registration is open from the 2nd to the 11th of February, and you can find all the details at edurolearning.com/CAL. If this sounds like something you're interested in, stay tuned to the end of the episode, and I'll share a little bit more about it, as well as my takeaways from this conversation. Okay, let's jump in. How did the journey go like you expected? How did the journey not go like you expected? Like what was unexpected in your journey? And we could potentially combine that with the next question, which is what are some of the frustrations you faced? Because I think that's kind of where we're trying to get to next. So I'll start with Pau and then Carrie.
Yeah, so I think I did touch on the fact that it was probably the most challenging year for me as an educator, but because I had like my eye on the prize, which was I want to become a coach, or like coaching is something that I really want to develop. I still found pockets, even if I was told, right, like this is not what you're gonna do this year. We still did it. So for me, that was something unexpected that came out that was really good for me to hone those skills and help and support. The frustration for me though is really when you've been in a place where you've seen it work and then leave that place and move to a place where the norms, the structures, the systems are not there. And you want that for them, right? I don't know if it's I guess it's a frustration when it's not there, because you really have to start from the very beginning. And that means as an other in this space, right? Like it has so many layers. It's so much more than just, do we use gym night or Sweeney or a combination? Nah, it's really about, can we trust this person? Who is she? Like and it's dismantling their understanding of coaching, which is we're not experts. We're here to, it's not about that, right? So but for me, the frustration was ignorance would have been bliss. Like if I had not known what it was, how it could be so I experienced this very much in our middle school. So in our gigantic school, I can't speak for the other schools, but I know it was really robust and worked so well. And I wanted that for this new school. So I think there was a big gap between my hopes, the blue sky thinking, and what was happening in reality. So that will be the frustration. How about you, Carrie?
Similar. very similar. I think my current biggest frustration revolves around a community that isn't used to collaborating the way that the PYP, which is where I've been for, I was telling somebody this earlier, 16 years or something, forces collaboration. And so because this community doesn't function in that way, when I go in to ask questions about what's happening, there's no understanding about why I might be doing that. And that lack of understanding makes people a little bit like, why do you need to know this? Kind of. And it's not that they're being negative or they're trying to hide something from me or anything like that. It's just more of like, why do I need to have another person to tell what we're doing? We already have our team meeting, blah, blah, blah. And also sort of no understanding about what information I might need and why I might need to know it more than a week ahead of time. Like, in order to do a design project, I need to know what you're doing a couple of weeks before you're doing it so I can get kids to the point where, you know, like, so because they don't have a collaborative planning culture, and they do collaboratively plan in their teams, but they're not used to collaboratively planning with any specialist or anyone outside of their grade level team. And so, and their grade level team is sort of a little bit of a silo to everybody else's. Whereas in the PYP, you've got this document that shows everybody what you're doing, and you're sort of held accountable for it. And you've got these times you have to be accountable for. And as much as possible, we have to get all the specialists in there, and it doesn't really ever happen, but you try really hard and you do it as much, and you talk about it, and you talk about wanting to do it, and you talk about trying to do it. And so that's a frustration that I've had. And that's shock that I had at this school, because even in my first international school in Italy, we didn't collaborative plan at all. So I really should have had some expectation that this could be a possibility. But since then, and even the school I went to in Thailand, which was not PYP, we as a team decided we were going to collaborate, and we were collaborative. So I've been in this collaborating, hyper collaborative environment for so long. It was a real shock to my system to be somewhere where there wasn't that understanding of how that might benefit everybody, or benefit the program, or even be a thing that somebody would do. Like, why would you even care what the grade level before you did or the grade level after you was doing, like right now, other than, you know, like they do fractions and we don't have to do this anymore. So that's been a real struggle point for me. And I think it's a change. It's a different school, a different environment. There's, but for me, that's created a frustration, which has made things difficult. And then piled that on top of the fact that I thought I was coming into a more integrated program, and that's not the reality. It's sort of taken a long time to come to terms with, I can't be a one-woman bulldozer and make this happen. I mean, we have three or four of every grade level. Like, there's no way I can make it all happen. So what do I need to do for myself to feel like I've done some successful things? And I'm kind of doing guerrilla coaching, as you've put it. So I found some teachers and I got them to agree to it, and I have them write it in an email that they've agreed to not having a 40-minute period a week, because we're not going to do it that way. And they're on board with it, and we're going for broke. And I'm coaching someone in science. She was like, I don't really see myself as a science teacher. I used to teach littles, and now I have to teach science to third graders. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, it's been a while since I taught science too, but let's give it a go, and we'll do it together, kind of thing. So
that's awesome.
And so it's very, like, we're both really open to it. She just decided that she's open, or I asked her finally if she's open to being videoed. and like what that could benefit, how that could benefit both of us. And so we're even talking about like when we video it, we might be able to then share it with our IA who can't be in our meetings all the time. So that way our IA is like fully aware of the process and what's happening, because she's also doing some schooling around this and stuff. So, you know, it's really successful in one little bubble. And then I have another one that's a person I've worked with in the past and knows me, and we work together. And so we're working in a very similar way. So we have that little bubble. There are different grade levels, but it's frustrating that I can't go any further. It's like, there's so much potential.
But you know what happens to bubbles, right?
Yeah.
Like they're like this, and when they meet, sometimes, right? They don't pop necessarily. Sometimes they go boom. And what you're making me think too about, it's not a frustration. I think it's just something that's good, is when you are invested in something like a culture of coaching or values and beliefs around collaboration, like you have to stay in the school. You can't just go, and I'm a stayer. My experience in Manila in an international school there, I was there for 7 years. In UWC, I was there for 8. So it's like, of course, a lot of these things work. The language, you get it, or the zeitgeist of the place and the milieu is, you get it because they're there for a long time. So that's another thing you have to think about. Like, okay, I'm gonna dig my heels here, and that means you can't. In my mind, if I really started that or be part of a team that started the coaching program, it was like 7 years in my head. I'm gonna have to stay here to see this through, because these things, these little bubbles you're creating, Carrie, like they're happening now because you had last year, and now then you're going to create more bubbles, and the only way to do that though is to stay. So I don't think it's a frustration. I think it's just something you have to think about when you're invested in this work, because you invest in the people, I think, and the school and the kids and everybody and yourself. Yeah.
So I have a couple thoughts on that. And one is, I've been having I find that my like little things that I come up with, I would call them like an epiphany. They're a real slow burn for me. They take a long time. And then like the thing pops to the surface, like, oh, that's what I've been thinking. And so when you talk about the only way to get it to grow is to stay, I hear you and I appreciate what you're saying. However, I also think there's a piece that there's only so much. When Carrie, you called yourself a one-woman bulldozer, there's really only so much a one person can do to shift the culture of a school. Not to say that you shouldn't keep trying, not to say like I'm always like positive minded and keep going and let's get those bubbles to merge. Like that is really my general attitude about things. But then recently I started thinking about, maybe it's because of some webinars I've been doing, some conversations I've been having with school leaders. Yeah, that at the head of the school or the principals, they don't really understand coaching. You're just constantly going to be going up against a brick wall, and there's just only so much one person can do. So I hear you on the like staying, you will reap the benefits of staying. I completely agree with that and understand where you're coming from. But then I also think about people like Carrie and some of my other clients that, were like, this place is not moving, not only not fast enough for me, but not fast enough for me to even imagine that I might get there in my working lifetime. You know what I mean? And so there is like a boundary between, oh, I'm seeing this momentum, let's keep it going. And okay, we either need a complete change in leadership structure, or I need to move on, because we're working hard, right? And so either you're going to be working hard with the movement of the school, or you're going to be that one person working against the movement of the school. I don't know. I'm not trying to be depressing, because I am generally a very positive person, but I've just had a lot of little niggles lately about how important it is for the head of school, for the upper level leadership to really be on board and see where you're trying to go with this, whether or not they can support you by changing your schedule, in Carrie's case, for example, but just like being on board with what you're trying to achieve. If that person is going to stop you at every turn, there's only so much one teacher can do.
But this is what I mean. For me, it was implicit. Like this program is gonna work. Like I felt like, because I came from a place where it did work, like I didn't think I needed to say the head of school has to be on board. Everybody has, like, for me, that was implicit, Kim. Like, of course, if those things aren't there.
Yeah.
Hello, self-care. Like,
Yeah. No way. Like,
you got to make a decision. This place is not for me, right?
Yeah.
Like, tried
It's
whatever.
hard. That's hard though. And even me thinking this thought and like this bubbling to the surface for me, it's hard to admit that maybe this is not the right place. They got you there for some reason, right? You didn't just like decide on a whim, hey, I'm going to move to a whole other country and move all of my stuff, my family, my life to a new place. Like you went for a reason. And then to figure out that maybe this isn't the right place. I think that's a slow thing.
I think that's a reality of international school teaching. I mean, I can remember my best friend asking me how to pick a school for her daughter when her daughter was like an infant, but she was going to have to start thinking about that and get her kid on a waiting list or whatever. And I gave her this long, detailed story about how to do it and make sure you go to the school and get the tour and then try to go back to the school and like get behind the desk on a day where you don't have a tour. Like, oh, I wanted to see something in the library. Can I just pop in there and see so you can get the feel of what the school is, not on the tour? And then I looked at her and I was like, but you're taking advice from someone who takes jobs in countries she's never been to, can barely find on a map, it's schools she's never heard of before. So maybe I'm not the person to ask this question. And I think part of the nature of international schools is
the transients.
You don't know until you get there. And sometimes you don't even know for like 6 months. And I think that's part of the struggle of this job specifically, because a grade 4 teacher, there's like a couple options. There's inquiry, there's not inquiry, there's somewhere in the middle, right? There's not all, I'm sure there's more than that if somebody wanted to argue. But, there's, okay, I thought it was inquiry. It's not. Let's go somewhere in the middle. That'll work for me. I can deal with that. Or I thought it was traditional and I was good with that. Now it's inquiry. I'm going to go somewhere, but when you're in a more specific role and you have a very clear understanding of what that role should be, and you get into the school and they don't have a very clear understanding of what it means in that school or what it means in general, because there's no sort of universal definition, then it's very difficult to know what you're going to come into. And I'm going to stop talking because the guys are driving down the road with the cars.
Yep.
This rolls really nicely into the next question, which is, have you chosen to stay in K-12 education or leave? But I also want to just reference when we were having this initial conversation months ago on another call, I think it was Pau who said this, but I really appreciate this point. So I'm going to restate it if you don't mind, Pau. She talked about a lot of times there's a lack of understanding about what coaching is and how it works, which is what Carrie was just saying. And often leaders don't know how to support coaches either. We as coaches may have an idea of the path around, where we want to go, but even the people who actively support us don't always know. And what can happen is the school may not be able to take a pause and say, how can we use these amazing people? And then coaches can get stuck in a place where they've been encouraged by leaders to grow, but it's often unclear what you're aiming for versus your very clear understanding of where you're going. And I think that is what, Carrie, you're like summing up, like you were hired for the work that you can do, but maybe your school leader doesn't have exactly that vision of what that could or should be. And so they are encouraging you to grow, I'm sure, but they're not providing a space where you can do that. And I think that is a real tension specifically for coaches, because I do think in international schools, there is this belief among school leadership. And I've had a lot of conversations with school leaders lately about like, well, you just have to hire the right person. And yes, of course, you do want to hire the right person. That goes without saying, but you also need structures and systems in place to empower that person to be successful. And you're not going to be able to just hire the right person and then they magically make a coaching community. Like I don't understand that thought process, but it does seem like that is what happens. And I, had a conversation with a school leader a couple of weeks ago that I have previously worked with. And they were like, well, Kim, coaching is such a hard position to hire for because you don't always get people, like you can just come in and do it. And I'm like, that's nice. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that to me. But when you have no structures in place, even I am not going to be able to come in and be, me. Like there has to be something there to support you to be successful. And I would love to have a conversation about that at a later date, which we've been chatting during this podcast talking about. So that's something, keep your ears and your eyes peeled because something along that will come soon. Thanks for watching this clip with Carrie and Pau. Phew, this episode is chock full of the reality of being in an instructional coaching role, and especially when you've been a coach for a number of years, so that the idea and practice of coaching is no longer new. This conversation really highlights the importance of developing a strong and consistent understanding of what coaching is, how it works, and what structures need to be in place for coaching to be successful, particularly in international schools where staffing changes so much. Having a community of support as you go through these challenges is so valuable, and sometimes you just can't get that in person. That's why we have our courses for coaches that are designed for the different stages of your professional journey. If you're an experienced coach and you're looking to either level up your practice by embracing your leadership, or you just need the support of being in a community of experienced coaches, join our first cohort of Coaches as Leaders. When you first start out coaching, you're often able to make a big impact by working with individual teachers. But over time, you need to learn to embrace your leadership, to scale your impact from one-to-one to groups and teams, to become embedded in the curriculum development structures in your schools, to connect teachers to each other to create a coaching culture. Those aspects of instructional coaching as leadership are easy to miss. You can try to stay at the one-to-one individual coaching level, but you will soon run out of time and capacity to work with every teacher individually. To truly grow a coaching culture, you need to leverage your leadership. Our first global cohort of Coaches as Leaders opens for registration from the 2nd to the 11th of February, and the cohort runs from the 10th of March to the 9th of June. Get all the details at edurolearning.com/CAL. Wherever you are in your coaching journey, we can support you. If you're curious right now, please reach out. You can leave a comment below, you can join our Coach Better Facebook group, or you can find us on social media at Eduro Learning and send me a DM. I'd love to support you on your coaching journey. See you next time.